Welcome to the Dr. Dad's podcast, where a naturopath and chiropractor come together each week to share lifestyle medicine, health advice, and inspiring interviews with some of the top experts in health and wellness, bringing you the latest in nutrition, exercise, ancient healing, toxins and detox, your microbiome, mindset, hormones, brain, and much more. Stay tuned. We're going to teach you how to experience growth daily.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Dad's podcast. I'm sitting here with two amazing humans, but firstly, Dr. David, how are you?
Fantastic, man. How are you?
Good to see you, buddy. It's been a couple of weeks. I was away on vacation, and
we both got to vacay. You a little bit longer than me, but we both took our little break, mid-year break, which was nice. You guys had some beautiful
play with the
pictures.
family, right?
Yeah, family time.
I tell you what, getting away is like a total reset for the brain and nervous system. Sonia and I discovered that our number one biohack in life is to disrupt the daily rhythm with some travel, right?
Absolutely, man.
We've been locked down for a while.
Works magic, man.
Yeah. Anyways, speaking of biohacking, speaking of resetting the brain and the nervous system, I mean, David and I are always looking for tools and ways to upgrade our health and basically like tap into a more holistic, more resourceful human being. And if we don't have our brain fully online, entering into a stage as what our guests would call God mode, we haven't yet really discovered what's possible. And so I'm going to introduce you to the man who created this beautiful little box and many others. It's called Brilliance on Demand. His name is Mark, aka Mr. Noots. And he's the formula, he's the brains, he's the experimenter. He does everything you need to know about how to hack or upgrade your brain. And so this is a box of nootropics. And if you haven't heard the word nootropics before, we're going to learn a lot about that today. But inside the little box, it comes with this amazing little blueprint that gives you so much insight into what kind of role or how to stack some of these different nutrients, how to look at the different neurotransmitters in the brain that play a huge role in memory, to mood, to like motivation, and so many things that people are suffering with, from brain fog to just not feeling great anymore. And so Mark's come up with a really beautiful solution. He's partnered up with BioOptimizers, and we're going to talk a little bit about that connection too. But so without further ado, Mark's got an amazing story. Thank you so much for being here, Mr. Noots. It's a total pleasure.
Thanks, Dr. Nick. Well, with that, okay.
And we're done.
On a high note, bro.
Mark, before we got a chance to start recording, you have such an amazing story, and I know some of it's very heartfelt, and I'd love for you to just kind of get in and lay some of the foundation of what got you to here. And I know there's a lot there, so maybe just summarize it for us, but there's some really pivotal points that happen in your life that really moved you into the direction of addiction and recovery and what it means to have a healthy brain.
So I'm gonna share three very short stories, but you'll catch the thread. Okay. When I was 10 years old, my elder sister, I'm one of 6 kids. And I'm near the bottom. So I'm I've got a younger brother, Tom. He's the talent. He's one of the talents. I should say all my siblings are super talented in their own way, but he's the musical talent above and beyond. And I've got another sister, Mary, who's right there. So my sister Karen, who was beautiful and super smart, she was about must have been 13 years old, 15 years old, maybe 15. She pulled me into the bedroom, closed the door, and said, I need you to watch the door. And I said, what's going on? She goes, I just watch the door, brother, you'll be okay. And then she wrapped a surgical tubing around her arm, slapped her forehead, put the needle, she cooked up some heroin and threw it in the vein and did the classic, pull the blood, mix it, put it in, pull off the thing, watch her eyes roll back in her head, and she fell back. And of course, it freaks you out when you're a young kid and you're going through that. And it is. And so I got to see her go through that. And then she was a heroin addict for 30 plus years. We found her on Burnside, which is a main street in Portland that goes all the way through Portland, from the good area to the bad area and everything in between. We found her, and she was 5'9" or so, 5'10", and she weighed 85 pounds or so when we found her. And then we did a tough love, all 6 kids. We all had her stay with us for a month to 6 months at a time, and just let her know that she was loved, that, you know, nobody was condemning her for anything. We were just here to help her, you know, maybe make the transition if she was interested. So that was kind of that, you know, when you grow up with somebody with addiction, you get to see it from a bunch of different angles. I mean, talk about Canada, man. She was married to the #1 drug lord in BC at one time. So John Eccles was his name. His dad owned Eccles Shipping, and that was the son, and yeah, died in prison. So you get, God, I sound like dude, no, we
this connected to brain health, right?
yeah. So I saw that, you know, and of course I did my own partying and stuff when I was young, and then got really clean, and then we fast forward, and my wife and I at the time, I started dating this girl in the late 80s, and we got into healthy food. I was listening to a radio show one day, and I heard this guy. Well, I was driving somebody to the airport in Portland. I listened to this guy, and he's going, yeah, this thing called huperzine A can help acetylcholine in your brain, and it can be really effective for helping, you know, dementia and other stuff. And this is prior to dementia being like a big thing, or Alzheimer's was very, very new on the horizon. And so I'm going, oh my God. And this guy was in Oregon City, about half an hour away. I drove and met him, and he was a, you know, biochemist out of University of Oregon. So I learned everything I could and started working with it and built a company and sold it. And then here we go. We're having our last kid in 1998 on, you know, in front of the fireplace, and she tears a little bit. And so the midwife gave her 4 oxycodone, and my wife, whose family has a tendency towards addiction, she just fell in love with it. It was just her muse. And so we fast forward a decade, and after masking it, hiding it, doing what you can, it finally got to the point we had separated and we divorced, and we were starting to meet, you know, each other for dinners, and we looked at like, what would it be like if we got back together? And then she committed suicide on a combination of oxycodone and you know, just really bad alcohol and some rest. So that got me really pissed. And so I said, why do people get addicted? Why? I mean, we're dealing with my sister, then now, you know, my wife. It's too close to home. I have other friends from high school and things that were also addicts, and who had met, and, you know, later on, where you do at the 20-year reunion and the 10-year reunion, you go, oh my God, how is this person still alive? And because, you know, it goes from dude, brewskis, right, back in high school, to dude, I'm still doing brewskis. Go, dude, no, that's not good. It's not good when you're 30. It's certainly not good when you're 40. And at 50, you're an idiot. So, you know, get your shit together. So it was kind of that kind of thing. And so, you know, suddenly I'm seeing this, and I'm seeing the emergency people, you know, putting a big needle in her heart and trying to restart her heart. And then, you know, going through, I just mentioned to Nick earlier, but this is what they give you when you've got an organ donor. They give you this beautiful handmade paper package with letters from all the people that had received their organs and what it meant to them. So really, you know, a beautiful expression, but it doesn't solve the problem, right? I would much rather have had her living another 40 or 50 years and loving life and being able to be a mother to her children, and, you know, to our children. And so that was kind of a bummer. And so, yeah, so I started studying. I went to a rehab center in Astoria, Oregon. Beautiful view of there's this massive bridge there. I don't know if you've ever been, Nick, but there's this bridge that spirals up, and then it goes about, I think it's 3.5 miles across the Columbia, the mouth of the Columbia River, like right against, you know, it's not on the water, but it's close enough that it's like, holy crap, I'm, you know, hope the waves are chill today. And so he had this great view, and the guy was an entrepreneur, and he said, yeah, you can come in any Friday you want, because that's when they have the huge workload of getting people off the paddy wagon, and, you know, that are drunk or stoned, and any, you know, on meth. And small town 101, right? The smaller the town, the higher the drug abuse, lack of, I'm not going to say opportunity, lack of hope, lack of belief, lack of, you know, the instruments that you and I have. Talk about a mastermind group of people that can say, hey, you don't have to work 100 hours a week in order to survive, or you don't have to go do what your dad did and your grandfather did in the lumber industry, you know, to, you know, forestry or whatever, or shipping, or some blue collar job that isn't satisfying. Maybe I'm not saying blue collar jobs are bad. My dad was an incredible blue collar dad, right? But there's a lot of different avenues to do things in today's day and age. So anyhow, I got to see all these people. I'm going, why are you an addict? And they'd say, well, it's, rehab is expensive. It's embarrassing. If I had a job, I'm going to be out of work for at least 6 weeks, probably 12. And I'm still going to be addicted to something. It's going to be, some prescription med. And if I miss picking up my prescription for any reason or whatever, I'm, the closest, it's easy to find my dealer. And so that's kind of my journey into that. And then it was going, okay, if I could make something affordable, super effective, super fast acting, and made you feel better than when you were high, like would that be worthwhile? And that became my mantra. And that's what I focused on for the next 4 years and 3,000 prototypes.
That's amazing. Well, and you said like one of the products was one of the nectar. That's my favorite, by the way. It's this amazing powder you add to your water. You just feel like a boss. I mean, you feel amazing on it. And that was part of you said that was your first one, right? It was your first product.
Yeah. It was so Nectar X, which we called NZT at the time, because the movie Limitless had just come out, and I owned a brainstorming software company at the time. And so my customers, who were the 396,000 people worldwide who relied on our software to help them think clearly. Like Pastor Rick Warren used it. He and his associate pastors used it to write sermons. And Drew Carey wrote his book with it and wrote a lot of comedy with it. And we had tons of comedians. We had tons of writers, and Hallmark cards are written with it still today. They have old computers because we didn't upgrade the software in the last 15 years. So they use these old computers. I'm sure they have to boot up offline just to make it so they don't get problems. But it was great. But so I had these really smart people. I could send samples of crappy tasting powder in unmarked test tubes and say, try this. You trust me. If you trust me with your code, you'll trust me with this powder. And so they would take it, and I built a little online database and said, form and said, tell me how it felt. Tell me if it made you perform better or worse. Tell me how long it took for it to be effective. And I started getting better and better and better at doing these formulations and building pairings of molecules, right? As a nutritionist, you understand is, you take two components, like a choline donor and a acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, right? So now you've got choline, which maybe they're missing, and then you have a acetylcholinesterase inhibitor that keeps the choline from breaking down so it can stay flowing in the synapse. And now you've got clarity of thought. So start doing that and you go, okay, well, what about, how about neurogenesis? What if I wanted to create more neurons? Cool, well, let's put a neurogenesis element in there, a stack of nutrients. And then you go, well, hold it. These addicts, or even regular people like you and regular people like you and I just either downgraded or upgraded this. I'm not sure. Right? Whatever it is, man, it's us. We have oxidative stress we're dealing with, right? We're dealing with adaptogen-centric stress where our adrenals are burned. I've done enough 85 to 100-hour weeks to know what that's like. We've got poor thyroid maybe because we live in the upper quadrants of the United States or the northern hemisphere where we don't get enough sunlight unless we know how to augment our sunlight intake and create enough vitamin D and get the conversion and hypothyroidism is rampant. And so creating an adaptogen stack in there and then creating an antioxidant stack and then going, there's a trick. So one of the things I found was that as you take and you start removing these roadblocks to physiological and neurological optimization and success is I found that there was this process, the conversion process, which is an enzymatic conversion that happens in the brain after you get through the blood-brain barrier, right? There's an enzymatic process of converting all of these different neurochemical precursors into the proper neurochemicals at the right level, right balance to flow with the right signaling to be triggered to do the right thing, right? The dopamine and the serotonin and the acetylcholine, right? And noradrenaline and adrenaline and the rest. How do you get them to work in concert? And so I started developing these multi-layered, very gentle, very controllable stimulant stacks so that as the brain is processing these precursors to neurochemicals, you don't fall off a performance cliff Well, it's like dragging all these calories out of your brain, trying to get the conversion process going so that when it comes up and you suddenly have performance, right? You don't go from falling asleep to suddenly, you're bouncing off the walls. It just brings you up to a nice level, keeps you there. Then when the neurochemicals start coming up, you just feel better, clearer. Maybe your lateral thinking is improved, or your focus is improved, or your happiness, your mood, right, is improved, or any of those, or maybe you've restored your dopamine from, you've been getting likes all day and suddenly, you've burned up that, right? And suddenly I need some more dopamine, bro. And so we figured out how to do that. So that's that became the thing. And then we figured out, man, so that's Nectar X, right?
Yeah.
But we figured out this cool thing, is that if we just gave you Nectar X, that you would get a benefit. Most of the time you get a benefit. But if I wanted to help you get to your optimum, like your rock star level, we call it sick to superhuman. If I wanted to get you from sick to suboptimal to optimal to super optimal to superhuman, the way to do that was I was going to have to build that stack with all of those elements, right? The antioxidant, the adaptogen, right? The choline donor, the nootropic, and maybe the stim layer. I was going to have to build it for your physiology, your neurology, your life goals, and your physical and neurological goals, and where you were today. Like, are you keto this week, right? Are you hanging out with Hyman next week? Are you, what's your gig, and how are you operating? And then we've got millions of data points that we've been assembling for the last 15 years now, 14 years, that have helped us to go, oh, we know you need a little bit more of this, a little bit less of this, none of this, and a ton more of this. And we're going to get a much higher probability that your performance is going to be super high instead of moderately high or even. So,
yeah, I love that. So I want to just make sure that the listeners are tuned into everything you're saying, and then I'd love you're kind of defining nootropics and the role that they play as we go here, but you found a massive need. I mean, what an incredible amount of trauma to experience at such a young age, and to recognize that there's this, neuroinflammatory habitual addiction cycle that's leading to massive depletion in the neurochemicals of the body and the chronic stressors and just life in general. And to find that there's a niche or a role to play to really optimize the neurochemicals of the body, and that's basically where nootropics fit in. And to think that, historically, or maybe even prior to knowing more about you and your product and process, I would just think of like, there's a category for nootropics. That's after you take care of the diet. That's after you do all the things, and now we're going to optimize. But you're more like saying, like, listen, your brain is traumatized as a result of chronic daily living, and there may be addictions, there may be alcoholism, there may be whatever. We need to get your brain functioning now. And there's a perfect stack that can work in your favor based on understanding what's depleted. So, based on that history and like the incredible exposure at such a young age, and recognizing this need, like how do you see these things playing a role into people's, regimen? And there's one right there.
Aren't they pretty?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that looked like part of the delivery mechanism you were speaking to. It's almost like some have capsules inside the capsule, but there's a differentiation between the different products that are in there, and that may be part of the time release. But please answer that question just regarding, like, how do people fit these things in?
So by the way, it's a really, really insightful question. One is, so I mentioned that we have this. We started developing this scale pretty early, which was what we call sick to superhuman. And we found that most people are sick in one area or another. David, you will understand this critically. I have 5 times in my life, I've been so dramatically improved by a world-class, by basically having the background that you have, and being able to like I went to my chiropractor. I had a critical accident at one point where I just bought a high-speed bicycle because I thought I was young again, and I'd been modifying a mountain bike and making it faster and faster and faster, and suddenly I go, you know what? My Bianchi in 1982 was faster than what I'm driving to do. What am I doing? what am I doing? I can throw money at some problems. This is one that deserves money. So I bought a really fast bike with, 120 PSI tires that are, less than 3/4 of an inch wide. And I'm biking into the gym one day, of course, biking to the gym, right? Which always where you get hurt is going in or leaving the gym. And I slip on the painted arrows that are there for the guiding the cars to drop the kids off at the pool. Not a metaphor, by the way, not a metaphor. And I bury my shoulder into the pavement, into the blacktop, and just shear my collarbone. And then I break 5 ribs, and 3 of them go into my lung. And of course, if you want to put insult to injury, the person that drags me into the lobby of the gym to call, emergency is this bodybuilder chick. Like, she just picks me up and goes, "Oh, gotcha, Hulk." It's great. So I go in there and I warn them that I'm an entrepreneur, so don't call 911. that third digit is very expensive. So I was only about a half mile from the office. So I just called one of my employees, had him take me home. And I looked, I said, who gets burdened with this? And I found that downhill mountain bikers do. And downhill mountain bikers that do crazy downhill mountain biking aren't my age. They're 20, 18, 16, and 24, right? They're that. And they all break their collarbone. And about half of them said, don't get anything done, just kind of get it set right and let it do its healing, guide it, get some good. And then the other half said, no, get pins in it. It'll be stronger than anything. And you'll become Iron Man when you're done, but you won't be able to go through TSA. So I opted for the former. I went to my chiropractor right the next Monday, and I'm in serious pain, right? And he takes shots. He's heading to Chicago, like literally an hour after. So he heads to Chicago. He calls me from Chicago in a panic. He goes, dude, because we just got the X-rays back, and he goes, dude, I said this to my bone doctor, to the bone man, and he said, and he goes, that thing in your lung, that's blood. Half your lung is full of blood. You should be in emergency. And I'm going, no, I'm not going. And he goes, all right. He goes, here's what I want you to do. He goes, I want you to do a twist. He goes, you're going to feel the ribs pop out of your lung. And then I want you to recline. And he guided me. And we got the lung healed. In 2 weeks, I was no longer, I was stable enough that I was starting to sleep. 6 weeks later, I was feeling great. And 8 weeks later, I was in the gym. And yeah, I still had broken bones, and I wasn't going to do any hardcore powerlifting that week. But it was having a chiropractor that actually gave a shit, knew his shit, right? And was able to guide me in a way that made a difference. So, sick to superhuman. So what we found, gentlemen, was everybody, when we actually start doing a self-analysis that's honest, we're all have some area where we're kind of broken. We're kind of sick. It may be birth, it may be DNA, it may be an event we went through, a traumatic event, or some other thing, or just maybe degradation, maybe inherent degradation. I did 500 serves in 8th grade, right? I was doing Roscoe Tanner serves, right? And so I overextended. I've had a ripped shoulder ever since. I have to realign it on a regular basis to get it so that it doesn't degrade the joint really bad. But it's, the hyperextension just made it bad. I still was a state tennis, competitor, but I also know the pain that I lived in daily. So that's a sick component, right? So there's a lot of things you can do. Most people are operating between suboptimal, which is it's recognizing your sickness and doing something proactive about it. Most of us are at that suboptimal, and we kind of move into the optimal, right? We move into like the way we feel on a good day. Not necessarily a super great day, not the multi-orgasm day, but on a good day. So then when we get there, we often are eluded that is as good as it gets. But in reality, we can actually migrate by knowing how to optimize our breathing, knowing how to optimize our energy, like Tony Schwartz, the Energy Project guy, he and Jim Lohr, where you go, okay, I'm starting to feel tired. Am I going to fight it? Am I going to brute force it? Am I going to go throw some caffeine at it? Am I going to go and take a 5-minute power nap? Am I going to put some binaural on, am I going to do some oxygen therapy real quick? Am I going to do some Dallas breathing? What am I going to do to get myself into state so that I can operate at that high level again? And then you get there and you go, oh my God, I've got something left in my bandwidth here. And you go to that super optimal place. And once in a while, or like we like to say, if you want to go into state on demand, you can take components that your neurology and biology are naturally deficient in. And by taking the right components at the right time with the right conditions, you could push yourself into Barry territory, right? So the superhuman side is really interesting because most people never get that experience. They never know the joy of going into superhuman outside of a white knuckle experience of, street, biking and going around a corner at a little bit too high a speed and recovering before you wreck, or, you know what I mean? Or going a little too fast your car or your bike or whatever, and just having those white knuckle events. But when you can actually program your neurology to be able to get your biology to accommodate you to doing these events that are superhuman, there are periods from, an hour to 12 hours where you so eclipse what you consider your highest operating state that it's almost imperceptible. I mean, you don't think it's perceivable, right? And
yeah, I mean, what you're speaking to just, I imagine for some just sounds so foreign. It's like, what do you mean? Like that can happen for me? You know what I mean? Like, I love that you're speaking to this because I think it's so important for people to really invite those questions into their life. Maybe some people are sort of teetering, probably most people that we see are teetering somewhere between suboptimal and sick. But to actually think that there's something way beyond just normal. Who's this guy?
Super optimal, sometimes superhuman. This is Augie Doggy.
Yep. What's up, Augie?
He maintained. Look at that guy. He's responsible for all the lab stuff.
Right. He's the testing. This is humane animal testing right here.
Yeah, exactly.
David, go ahead, buddy. I know you got some questions for Mark.
Well, just kind of like what Nick's talking about. I mean, I think everybody's looking for an altered state. And it's interesting. I mean, like Nick's saying, I mean, everything from people just that overdo it with sugar in their diet, right? And I love it how you're talking about this whole like this awareness of like where you're at, right? And like Nick's saying, for most people, it's just suboptimal all the time. It's just the norm. They've never experienced anything like that. Yet they're always chasing an altered state. And look at all the horrible things that people use to get these altered states, right? From recreational drugs to sugar to, I mean, we're using all the crap to get these altered states, which is doing nothing but damage to our bodies. So I love where you're going with this because we're talking about using a supplement regimen that can take us to this superhuman state, or if you're sick or suboptimal, at least to the optimal state. And it's an altered state. And why not be using something that's literally boosting your physiology and your health and these other things? And I love the brain, man. So you're speaking my language. I'm getting excited as you're talking because for our listeners, if this is happening at the brain level, like you're talking, Mr. Noots, this is happening at the body, right? So like we're getting this global effect of the whole system, all the systems working cohesively because everything's just right. And that's why you feel that superhuman state. So this is good, man. I mean, I'm excited to hear kind of, I'm sure, like you said, this took like 3,000 trials to finally kind of refine this. But I love how you've talked about the journey to get there because I'm sure it was a grinding journey to try to finally refine what you're talking about. Because I know a lot of people in the nootropic world have been after these type things, but it's funny because like you'll try some of these things and they just don't do it, man. Like Nick was very excited when he got your kit because he's like, man, this stuff's amazing. He's like, I'm like buzzing like immediately when I take this stuff. And so like me, I'm always the happy skeptic. I'm like, okay, I've got to check this stuff out because I've tried a lot of nootropics and just have not had the best, honestly, like really the best results with them. And there's a lot of them starting to pop out left and right.
David, I feel like that's part of like the individualistic approach that is created. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it exactly. I was gonna jump in on that one as the same thing, just what you were saying, Nick. I found it if I just created a stack, like on this journey to the 3,000, I had a little over 1,000 beta testers, of which anywhere from 50 to 550 would get samples on a daily or weekly basis from me. So, but it actually, even at 2,900, I hadn't hit it. I had hit some of it. I had hit like what you'd said, talking about, about both oxidative stress and about inflammation, and inflammaging, right? Rhonda Patrick was teaching recently in Santa Barbara at a conference I was at, and she's talking about, it was so great because she was talking about the gut barrier, right, into the bloodstream is not dissimilar to the blood-brain barrier. They share a ton of common threads, and very much like I live in an old town, and so you have a lot of these arched windows with you've got a capstone in the middle, and the capstone is shaped like a V, and it relies on the arch to be able to make a very strong structure. And in the blood-brain barrier as well as the gut barrier, there are two capstones that are facing each other, and with inflammation, they just open enough to let the certain size and certain constituent molecules through, so that you can have the benefits of whatever you're trying to get, right? Whatever your brain needs, whatever your bloodstream needs, your body needs. But under inflammation, it forces those apart, and all kinds of toxins will come through. That's the inflammaging and the inflammation, induced paralysis and just the really negative events that happen from that. So, and she was really, she was like, look, I know you guys want me to talk about all kinds of stuff, because she goes, this is the only thing that matters right now. Let's get rid of inflammation. Let's max our omega-3s. Let's try some even more, exotic algae oils and other stuff. And let's figure out how to solve this. We solve this. We solve a huge portion of these secondary and tertiary and quaternary conditions that people are subject to. So that's a soapbox on inflammation, but a huge problem. But what we found when I was making these, right? So I'm cooking these things up. I'm sending them in test tubes to all of these different smart people and saying, hey, try this out. Give me feedback. Tell me if you died. And, so it's great. And what happened was, as a result of that, I started asking more and more detailed questions. It wasn't just, who are you? Where do you work? How many hours do you work, right? When do you go to bed? Like, those were like the basic questions at first. And then it was, when do you eat? How often do you eat? What kind of diet do you use? Are you on? How much coffee do you drink during the day, or tea? Or do you have any stimulants at all? Are you hypersensitive to stimulants? Are you not sensitive to stimulants? How many oils? Or what vitamins and nutrients and supplements do you take? What meds are you on? Have you ever had a heart attack? Have you ever had any kind of defect or issue? Have you ever been doing how often do you visit your doctor? There was just these collective. Eventually, it was 6 pages of exhaustive stuff that just pissed them off, but they were still kindly filled them out because I gave them free meds, right? So in that process, I realized that I could vary the factors, because I'm putting everything in powders and test tubes at the time. I could vary the factors of the components of each of those and said, aha, and I could even eliminate some, and I could add different stuff. And I started going from a 30 to 42% success rate to a 97.2% success rate on an average, and then eventually 97, because they were customized to the individual, and I was getting iterations. So it customized for the individual. They would say, great, this worked really, really, really well, but it kept me up too much at night. So I go, oh, okay, cool. How do I modulate the stim layer so that it gives them the stim when they need it, but it also falls off when they don't need it, but it doesn't make them crash? And, how do you do that? So there was, right, working with lecithin and some of those things. Some sunflower lecithin seem to have a key factor in that. So working with those kinds of factors, and then going, oh, I get it. Customization, like personalization and customization was the key to success. And then, of course, they said, that's too freaking hard. There's no way you're going to be able to do that. You can't scale. And I said, yeah, but I can't build something mediocre. That would kill me, right? And I would much rather have something that doesn't scale, but is meaningful and worthwhile, and really, really address 1,000 patients or clients, than having something that hits 1 million clients and 1,000 are affected in a positive way because, right, it's such poor results. So that's a little bit of probably what you've been experiencing with off the shelf, one size fits all products is a problem. So everything we do, including all our capsules, are customized and personalized just to the individual. So
I love that, man. I love what you just said. That was huge because that's like my motto as well, man. Like I run our chiropractic clinic. We're a wellness clinic, and the quality of care that I offer, there's a cap of how much I can scale that to. And I'm not willing to scale my business outside of losing the value of care that I offer. And just like you said, I would rather offer this high quality of care to this many people than to dilute it and try to do twice as many and not give that value anymore, right? So I love hearing this from somebody who builds nutrition and is tackling problems just like I do, just different problems, right? To help us all out. But that was beautiful, man. So I really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you, brother.
That right there was huge.
Nick, you were talking about a mastermind group that you're a part of. So the way that Bioptimizers and my former company, Web Nutrients, the way we actually found each other was through a guy that runs a mastermind group named Brad Costanzo. And Brad's this incredibly cool guy who is a customer of mine since the beginning. In fact, he did the first podcast on me in either April 2012 or April 2013.
Wow.
Super cool guy. I was coming back from the clinic when he called and said, dude, I got 6 guys on the phone. We got to get the down low on this. It's working great for everybody. So I pull over into a Safeway parking lot and just rattle off. And for 2.5 hours, we just talked about what nootropics are and how they, and why customization is essential and those things. And so Brad opens up a box of the custom nootropics he'd ordered. This is in April of 2020. And he opens it up and he pours it out. It's just in a priority mail box, right? And a bunch of test tubes and stuff. And he goes, I think he said something like, "This is the shit." and it wasn't a video, it was just a picture, right? A static image. And then there was a boatload of comments on it in Facebook. And, people saying, well, did you try this product from this guy's or what about this product? He goes, dude, I try them all. I do them all. But this is the one that works. This is optimized, customized, personalized to me. I've been with these guys since they opened their doors. They care. They love people. They'll go above and beyond what it takes to make it happen. I wouldn't go anywhere else, even though I have an opportunity to all the time. And one of the guys that saw that was a guy named Matt Gallant, who is CEO and business partners with Wade, Wade Lightheart. And, Wade is they're both Canadians, eh?
That's right. You had to throw that in there, didn't you?
So yeah, it was and Wade is a 3-time, champion, right? Vegetarian bodybuilder, and Matt is a world-class trainer. And so, he saw it and he just called Wade and said, dude, I think we found what we were looking for. And they'd put like $150K of their own money into trying to build their own nootropic stacks. And they had bits and pieces of success, but nothing they could quantify. And if you know Bioptimizers, it's either the best or nothing. Like they don't do anything that's mediocre or just gets by. And so he contacted, so this is where Mr. Noots came from, by the way.
Oh, so they labeled you Mr. Noots.
They were, yeah. So what we did, this is funny. So for 6 months, so Wade comes down about 3 months. So Matt and I get on the phone with Andy, who's in London, our COO, and we have a 5-hour love fest of just like, what do you think about this, or what about this, or what about this component, or what about this ingredient, or what about this extract, or what about this process? And we just had a blast. Finally, I found my tribe, right? And that resonance that you get when you find people that you love and you go, oh my God, where have they been all my life? Talk about masterminds.
That's right.
And so Matt calls up Wade and says, hey, when you're after 40 years of Zen at Asbury's up there in Seattle, why don't you take a trip down, take a 3-hour trip and go visit this guy? And so Wade comes down, he takes a look and he goes, this is really interesting. I think it's cool. I'm going to call Matt when I get out of here and let's see if it makes any sense for us to do some stuff together. No definition of that. And he drives back up. I leave him with a bunch of stuff, right? His favorite was Zamner juice. Where's
I
my
haven't
phone?
tried that one yet.
Oh, dude, this is
No.
great. So
Yeah.
I'm an examiner because I was consulting to, as a, our business, very much like yours, David, is we're a consultancy that happens to have solutions, right? So we want to know who you are from a holistic perspective, from a human perspective. And then we want to know what you've done, know what your goals are. And then we put together the program that's going to put you on a path to hopefully that kind of success, maybe beyond if everything goes right. And so this lady came to me. She was Hawaiian, living in Portland, Oregon. That's already a recipe for disaster, right? Because Portland is getting they call it the Silicon Forest, so it's getting a bit Silicon Valley in terms of, come on, let's go, right? I-5 freeway is jam packed every day, twice a day for 4 hours at a time. There's a 15-minute window at like 1:30 in the afternoon where you can actually make it through and get from Vancouver to Portland, or you're screwed. And so she was having that problem because she ran a half dozen medical clinics in the Pacific Northwest and having to travel on Interstate 5 or 205, the two kind of main routes through Portland. She just couldn't do it. So she said, there's a movie called Falling Down with Michael Douglas, where he's this geeky guy with a pocket protector and the glasses with the tape on him, who's just on the 405. It's a parking lot, and he finally loses it. And he just goes on a rampage, and he's pretty badass.
I feel like I've seen that movie.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So, but it's an example of what she was going to go through if we didn't find a solution for her. And she didn't want to. She goes, I'm drinking too much wine when I get home. I'm just not, it's not my gig. And so I made her a kava influenced spray that works almost instantaneously within about 3 minutes. Spray 4 to 8 sprays under the tongue. It'll put you into a Zen state. It's a GABA centric agonist. So it basically increases GABA levels and GABA receptor activity in the brain. So it puts you into chill mode without making you lose focus, without making you lose, you don't go fall sleepy or anything. But it gets you into that kind of, okay, now now my jets are cooled. Now I can function like a human being. And a lot of people use it even before getting on stage to speak, because it puts them in a state where they're energized, but they're not going to be an asshole, where they're focused, but they're not focused like Adderall, right? Where they're super effective, but their heart's not beating out of their chest because of nerves. And so, it's great. Great product. Try it.
That's how the Zamner juice came to be.
Yeah. And I'm going to make sure you get another box of some of our stuff on, we'll take a look at your intake form and any feedback.
Yeah.
And you saw that we have a 31-day journey, right? Or 30-day journey with the app and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's to the point that you made and David made. I mean, the customization piece and your ability to scale it. I mean, like to your point. I mean, it was really fascinating to walk through that quiz, to see the different categories of things like the Brilliance on Demand to the focused savagery or the focused whatever it was,
ferocity, and then world dom and
then world domination. Like to see that there's different applications for even people to try out, to dip their toe in a little bit, but with the backdrop of knowing where your deficiencies are. And that's where the power is, because, there's some like complex yet simple questions to really answer, but it really forces you to take a clearer look at, do I actually pay attention? Am I focused easily? How's my energy? Do I get very distracted? Some of those basic questions that maybe we don't really think about, but when you apply it and you see the corollary in the neurotransmitter that's depleted, and you can start to address it, you can start to get a lot more, I guess, integrated, but also a lot more awareness about where you're stuck and how much that's affecting your decision making. The food choices, maybe the desire or lack thereof of exercise, to your distractions through the day. You're scrolling through social media, like the amount of hours wasted because we're not performing at a higher level of where we should be, and the decision-making processes that we're failing as a result of just needing to pull ourselves out of like the rut that we're in. I mean, I feel like there's so much to be gained by actually optimizing your brain in this kind of way. So I love what you're doing. I'm recognizing that we're running a little low on time, but obviously, Mr. Noots, we've invited you into the Health Ignited podcast. We're going to talk to you a little bit more over there too. But
Yes.
do you have any, like, obviously people need to go to nootopia.com, nootopia.com. There you'll find the quiz. Take that quiz, find out where those deficiencies are. What else would you like people to bring their attention to? Like, once they get that quiz, obviously they go back to the website to figure out, how to apply what they've just learned. But what else can you tell people about what to do?
Well, a couple things. One, do you have a discount code? You should.
I do is Dr. Nick. We don't have one specifically for the podcast. David, I don't know if you're set up with anything, but anyways, we can put it in the show notes.
Sure. Yeah.
People.
Just make sure I'll have my people hit your people and.
Yeah. Awesome.
So there's a couple things. One is we had especially when we originally started this, we had a lot of people that were afraid to share their what they would consider maybe inadequacies is what they shared with me later on. Like, I didn't want to tell you that I was a former heroin addict, or I didn't want to tell you that I was on this, or that I'm addicted to this med, or that I've got a sex addiction or whatever. And we're going, hey, look, this is private. This is the equivalent of a HIPAA form, like a secure medical form. And we're really, this is just used by our internal customization team to specify the parameters of your product based on millions of data input pieces, so that we can make the product better for you. We just want your success. And that's why we have a 365-day, money back guarantee. It's not, and I don't say that like an infomercial. I say that because we seriously believe in what we do, and we would rather have you healthy than unhappy. So if we don't do our job, we don't expect you to pay for that. So that's one. But the other is, keep in mind that for me, right? Like, I'm an old guy now, right? So for me it was a systematic process of peeling back the layers of the onion and going, oh, I didn't realize that this is what was keeping me from being effective. I didn't realize my hypothyroidism as a result of being a white rat in the military for a certain drug was hurting me. And then you go, oh, okay, now that's on. And you go, oh, okay, what's next? And if you're doing it right, very much like, you'll keep peeling back those layers. And every time you do that, you'll find a joy, a delight in discovering that there's something more that you can be, that you can perform, you can experience. And when it comes to neurotransmitters, there's the equalizers, the graphic equalizers you have on like stereos, right? Mm-hmm. So neurotransmitters, when you get them working right, they're kind of like those graphic equalizer, and it's where you just balance the room out, and you got the right base level, the right mid range, the 5 to 10K level, and the 10 to 22K level, right? Those are all working in concert. Everything's perfect. And when you turn on Carry On Wayward Son, or you turn on Dave Matthews Live at Luther College, it sounds right. And that's what having your neurotransmitters in tune does, is you're building the perfect supergroup, like Journey or Asia. Am I old or what?
I know those bands. It's all right.
And it's amazing, because the instruments come in at the right time, and you get all the right output, and the amount of effort that it takes to do something and be valuable and effective in life goes down, but your output goes up. And then eventually, like Matt, I consider Matt Gallant one of my mentors and guides in super effective life management. Like, he gets more done in 4 hours than most people get done in 4 days. And he doesn't do it by being an asshole. He does it by managing his energy, managing his focus, looking on his daily task list and going, is this really important? Am I doing the right thing the right way? Am I in harmony with my goals, with my body, with the people around me? And having that feedback loop that's constantly going yes or maybe or no, and fixing it when it's anything less than yes, the right thing the right way. And that's the state that we can accomplish when we have all of those pieces working in harmony. And that's when we get, again, right? I'm not going to say Boys to Men. I'm not going to go there. You can't take me there, right?
Oh, they're harmonious. Come on. We got to give them some love. So there you go. That's it, man. That's it. I love it. So if you guys didn't check that, we're going to put in the show notes, but it's Nootopia.com. Do the quiz, find out your customization package. Check this stuff out. I mean, it's been eye-opening for me, and I can't wait to dive into some more of your goodies. David, any last words for Mark, Mr.
I can't wait to get my goodies, man. I want to check this stuff out. I'm very excited. So yeah.
Last but not least.
Oh yes.
This is coming out, I think the first week in July. I think it is. Is that right? The 5th? The 6th of July. Look carefully.
Soon.
Dude, I got, okay. This one 30 second, 60 second. Okay. So Chastity was the core developer of this. And it was one of those beautiful accidental things that turned into something that she's just refined. So we were making a collagen supplement because she's wants more collagen and I wanted it more for joint recovery and skin. And I was doing really super concentrated lion's mane mushroom capsules for BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, to be able to get new neurons in the brain.
Yeah.
And she's pouring it into containers for me. I was getting kilos from all over the world, all these different suppliers of mushroom extract, 50 to 1, 100 to 1. And as we got more and more extract, the extraction levels got higher and higher. As pouring it, they got chocolatier and chocolatier.
Mm.
So we made this naturally chocolate milk tasting or cocoa tasting.
Oh,
it's incredible. And here's the deal. 17 grams, which is one dose, right? Which is 6 to 8 ounces of water or coffee or whatever you want to have it in, is the equivalent of 1.5 pounds of pure mushroom extract of cordyceps, red reishi, lion's mane, and
turkey tail.
No, turkey tail tastes like crap.
Good to know. Chaga. What else we got?
Chaga.
Lion's mane and
Chaga, because it's not really a mushroom. It's kind of a growth, but
totally.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's great. So it's all of the things that we build our stacks on: adaptogen, right? Anti-inflammatory, right? Choline donor, stimulant, and BDNF, and neurotropic. So it's all those factors. Plus, we have some really good Peruvian cacao in there to make the chocolate even more chocolatier, and some sunflower lecithin.
And that one's called collagenous. Or
Collagenous? Collagenous, yeah.
Collagenous.
That's
a great name.
Collagenous, 1-800-Collagenous.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'll make sure you get some of that too. We're going to make some, ship it to both of you.
Awesome.
I cannot wait. That's going to be like, no one's allowed to touch that. Except
It's the secret stash.
Exactly, the secret sauce. Mark, thank you so much, buddy. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you, brother.
We're going to be recording again next week, and there's so much insight here, and I know David's excited as well. So really appreciate your time. And
thank you, Dr.
Speaking again.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you, man.
Love you guys. Be well. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the Dr. Dads and share with your family and friends. You can also follow and interact with Dr. Nick and Dr. David on Facebook and Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration and the latest in health and wellness. Be well.